you have a fraction, like if you had a 1/2 as a base, you would want to make it a 2 for the inequality to work out right, and we talked about kind of checking our answers on those. The last thing I want to do is look at some uses for this stuff. So we are talking about interest today. With our interest, I just want to make sure we know what some of these terms mean. We're going to see some common payment plans. If I say annually, what does that mean? Once a year. Okay, what would semi-annually mean? Quarterly. Monthly. And daily. Make sure you know how many days are in a year. All right, so those are some of the terms that we are going to see today. I want to make sure everybody knows what each of those things refers to. There are two types of interest that we are going to calculate. The first formula we have is for compound interest. You don't have to memorize these formulas. I will give them to you on test or quiz, but I'm not going to tell you what any of the variables stand for. So at that point, I'll give you the formula, but you have to know how to use it. A is your final amount. Sometimes that is called the future value. Your P is your principal or your beginning amount. Sometimes that is referred to as present value. R is your interest rate in decimal form. So if I say 5%, what would you plug in your problem? 0.05. N is the number of times you compound each year. That's where that last slide comes in. So if I said monthly, your N would be 12. And your T is time measured in years. So if I said 6 months, what would you plug in for your T? 0.5, it's half a year. Okay. The second formula, we use this anytime I talk about continuous interest. So in this, the AP, RT, it all stands for the same things as the last slide. The trick is the only time you use this, it's continuous. You won't have an N in this scenario because it's constantly building interest on itself. So I printed these slides so we would have all of our notes and you don't have to take the time to copy down the problems. We may work all of them, we may not. We're just going to kind of see how it goes. So on the first example, I want the future value of $100 invested at 4%, compounded quarterly after a period of 13 quarters. So let's stop right there. What does the 100 represent? That is your P. It's what you have right now. 4%, that means my R is 0.04. Compounded quarterly, so that means minus 4. After a period of 13 quarters, so that means, right, you just have to do 13 quarters, so 13 divided by 4. Or 3.25 years. Does everybody understand how I got that? We are finding the future value. That is A, so that's the piece I don't know. This doesn't say continuous compounding, so you are using the first formula. A equals P, 1 plus R over N. The NT power. So 100. 1 plus 0.04 over 4 to the 4 times 3.25. I like to just put all this in my calculator at once. Please take a second and plug it in so we can make sure everybody is putting these in the calculator correctly before we move on. You are talking about money, so you should round to 2 decimal places only. $113.81. If you did not get that, let me look at your calculator. Part B asked for the amount of interest you have earned. So what would that be? You started with $100, so if you take your final amount and subtract the 100, you get $13.81 interest. Is that one okay? Find what investing $1,000 at an annual rate of 10% compounded continuously would yield. As soon as you see this word continuously, that tells you you are using the second formula. A equals PE to the RT power. What does this 1,000 represent? Principal is what you start with. Rate of 10%, so R would be 0.1. What is my time? I didn't really say, but I see that word annual. So annual, we would assume 1 year, unless I told you otherwise. So if we plug it in. You don't. Just don't mess that up. You have an E button. It's above the LN. So if you hit second LN, it brings up that E to a power. So we should end with $1,105.17.
Oh, that's because I didn't do it right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Next one. Leah must pay a lump sum of $15,000 in 8 years. What amount deposited today at 4.8% compounded annually will give $15,000 in 42 months? So if it's compounded annually, which formula are we using? The first. Okay, so let's see what we have in this problem. We have she needs to pay $15,000. So what does that $15,000 represent? That is our A this time. That's what she wants to end with. I'm trying to find what amount deposited today, so I am looking for her P. My interest rate is 4.8%, so we would do compounded annually. So what is my N? 1. Annually is once per year. My time, 42 months. How would I change that into years? So 42 divided by 12 is 3.5. Okay. Once you have this, it's just a matter of plugging it into your formula. So my A is 15,000 equals P, which I don't know, 1 plus 0.048 over 1 to the 1 times 3.5 power. You are welcome to work this out. I'm just going to divide. I'm going to do it all in my calculator at once. So I'm just going to do 15,000 divided by this. And like I said, you could do a lot to simplify that if you wanted. Should this amount be bigger or smaller than 15,000? If you need 15,000 in the future, right now you have less money. So I got $12,729.95. Any questions on that? Maybe I might get that. Part B, say she doesn't have that much. So if only $10,000 is available to deposit right now, what annual interest rate is necessary for the money to increase to 15,000? Okay, so we now know we still need $15,000 at the end. But the P this time is 10,000. The R is the thing we don't know. We are going to assume the same N and T as we had in Part A. So I didn't tell you that stuff was changing. So my N is still 1, my T is still 3.5. So A, 15,000, equals P, 10,000. 1 plus R, which I don't know, over N, which is 1, to the N times P power. Okay, this time we can do some simplifying. What would you have to do with that 10,000? Divide it over. What does that give you? 1.5 equals 1 plus R over 1 is just R. 1 times 3.5 is 2. Okay, how am I going to get R by itself? If it was squared, you would add a square root. It's a 3.5 power, so I am going to do the root of 3.5. And then what would you have to do with your plus 1? Subtract. I'm going to put this in my calculator. I would need an interest rate of 12.28%. Pretty high interest rate. So we're not always just plugging in and getting an answer. Sometimes you might have to manipulate the equation a little bit and solve for something. Are there any issues with that one? I'd like to do a few more, and then we'll have some time to work on homework. Find the present value, that should say, of $100. So find the present value. Present value is P. So I am looking for P. So what is this 100? That's our A. After 2 years, so T is 2, at 6%, so R is 0.06. Compounded monthly, so N is 12. So A is 100, P 1 plus R, which is 0.06, over N, which is 12. To the 12 times 2 power. Okay, you could break this into pieces. I'm just going to put it all in the calculator at once. I'm just going to do 100 divided by 5. Make sure you are labeling your answers appropriately. So if you're finding a dollar amount, make sure you put a dollar sign. If you're finding an interest rate, put your percent. Just label all your answers. Yes, ma'am. We get that one? Take it. Let's do this one together. What annual rate of interest? So I'm looking for my interest rate. Compounded annually, so my N is once. Should you seek if you want to double your investment in 5 years? So my T is 5. Did I give you your A or your P? No, I just said I wanted to double it. So there are different ways to do this, but probably the simplest is just make up an amount. How much money do you want to pretend we have right now? $100. So if I want to double that, how much money should I end with? $200. So you could pick any P that you wanted, and then your A is just that number times 2. So now if we plug in, so my A is 200 equals P, which is 100. 1 plus R over N, which is 1, to the N times T, so 1 times 5 power. We simplify. Divide by my 100, so I get 2 equals 1 plus R to the 5th. How do we get rid of a 5th power? need to. So I would need an interest rate of 14.87%. Questions? Last case. Find the amount in an account if $2,000 is invested at 8.5% compounded continuously. So what does that tell me? Second formula. Okay, so what does the 2,000 represent? P. It's what we have to start with. What is my R? What is my T? $2.25. So now we can just plug in. We get $2,421.52. Are there any issues with this stuff? Then that is our stopping point. Homework, I gave you mostly odd problems so that you can check yourself as you go. Make sure there are some questions that ask you to do multiple things, like it asks you to find the ending amount and interest earned, so make sure you do both parts of the question. You have to have some work since I'm giving you odd problems. If you just write down a final answer, you won't get any credit for it. So write down the numbers you're plugging in your formula, or write down the line you put in your calculator. And you've got the rest of the class to work on this.